Attitude is Everything's Accessible Funding Guide, Episode 3. The video opens on Laura, a white female in her early 40s. She is wearing glasses and a cream-coloured top with a gold chain necklace.
The support workers are the reason I've ended up getting these grants, because they've been able to help me, see them through.
The video fades into an introduction to the series from Joy, a black woman in her 30s with long braids and wearing glasses and wearing an all-black outfit. The video then shows Laura and Joy sitting in a large room, which is lit by soft, focused lighting. On the left is Joy, and on the right is Laura.
Do you know anything about funding? Well, neither did I, until I sat down with 4 amazing people to talk all things disability and bid writing. So if you're an artist and you're disabled and you want to find out how to write funding applications, then continue watching these 4 amazing interviews. My name's Joy Addo and I'm the Digital Content Coordinator at Attitude is Everything. Thanks for joining and keep watching. Thank you for joining me on this episode. Rather than me introduce you, I would love for you to introduce yourself. So can we start off with your name, your pronouns and your hometown?
Hi, I'm Laura Jones. I go by the pronouns she, her, and I'm based in Leeds, UK. I've been DJing and producing house and techno for well over a decade, playing at clubs and festivals in the UK and abroad as well.
How does your lived experience as a disabled person impact your creative practice and also like your business approach as well?
So just for context, for those who don't know, I was diagnosed with Stargardt's macular dystrophy, a form of juvenile macular degeneration in 2008. I was 25 at the time, and macular degeneration is an eye disease. It's incurable, a recessive gene, and it's degenerative, so it's like a progressive form of blindness which affects primarily your central vision, but it can also affect some people's periphery as well, right. Forming blind spots in the centre, kind of distorting, fragmenting the vision. So kind of you lose the ability to read text, recognise faces, drive, just get about, navigate around the world really. But yeah, text. I lost my driving licence in 2010, for example, because of the blind spots in my central vision. So it's affected both my DJing and my production over the years. Of kind of finding myself having to continually adapt to the progressive nature of the condition. So with production, I learnt on Addo, I learnt with Logic, but I've had to kind of, because at the time I didn't use voiceover or screen readers, so I couldn't use it in its kind of accessible form. And to be honest, I was too busy touring as well. I came to a point where I've been trying to make my setup more hardware-based, so more tactile, use more synthesizers. But then, funnily enough, I now use Ableton, because Ableton 12, the most recent version of Ableton, has actually become accessible. Right. So I've been actually testing, doing the beta testing for Ableton, and using, kind of learning the screen reading voiceover in tandem with learning Ableton. So trying to use the DAW accessibly. So that's kind of how it's affected my production. And then DJing, at one point I was able to kind of, again, due to its progressive nature, kind of earlier into the diagnosis, I was able to get around and DJ and use CDJs due to the backlit screen. I have kind of had to go through various different mediums and change different I've gone from vinyl to track to scratch to CD to USB, and then I've had to come kind of back full circle to vinyl with Braille, right. Which I learnt in the pandemic. Okay. Because I can no longer use the CDJs because I can't rely on the backlit screen anymore. So it's kind of, sometimes I kind of think, why did I not do this sooner? But I guess you kind of move with the tide of the condition, and you kind of do what you have to at the time. So, and one positive to come out of the horrendous pandemic was actually that I was able to have the time to kind of learn Braille and relearn to read, essentially. So, it's been challenging, shall we say. It's not been without its challenges. And because I both produce and DJ, it's just almost trying to have to relearn two ways of doing things, you know, and also relearning how to be a human being as well at the same time.
Was there ever a point, Laura, where you felt like it was too much, or did you always think, no, there's a way through this, like there's a way to kind of learn about the new equipment that you had to use?
There's been quite a few times where I've been very close to kind of packing it all in. It sounds cheesy, but there was a time I saw Stevie Wonder at Glastonbury's. I think it was his 40th birthday or something. And at that point, I was still working in a 9-to-5 job as a marketing executive. And I was kind of just teaching myself to produce on Logic in the kind of background in all my spare time. So that was kind of the first hurdle at the point of diagnosis. And I was like, how am I going to make this work? You know, how am I going to be able to tour and create at this point, they just said you're going blind. They couldn't tell me what the prognosis was at all.
Yeah.
So that was my first kind of how on earth am I going to do this? And there's been a few of those because I fell pregnant by surprise in 2017 with my long-term partner. So that was another point at which I was like, how on earth am I going to juggle the demands of parenthood with the demands of a long-term progressive health condition? And yeah, so, but I've kept on trucking and here I am.
It's really good to hear like that you may have had those thoughts, but you didn't like let that stop you. You've kind of like pushed through. Laura, let's talk a bit about funding. And can you talk to me about a time where you've had to apply for funding and how did you prepare for that? Like, how did you prepare for that process, really?
So since probably around 2018, 2019, so I had my daughter in 2017, and you know, becoming a parent did have its serious career implications. You know, you can't just go off touring to South America for 3 weeks at a time without taking the baby and your partner with you, and then before you know it, you come back with no money in your back pocket, you know. So I kind of reached out, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Help Musicians that I reached out to at first. And at the time, they would come and see you in person and they'd kind of have a chat and come to your hometown and see how you're getting on, and you could fill them in on the full picture. And they've been absolutely amazing on and off since 2018. So that was an interesting way of doing things, because any other grants that I've applied for, it's been more of a kind of fill out your questions on a portal and they'll come back to you in due course.
Yeah.
There is a bit of variety between them. Obviously, when I did Arts Council wanted more of a firm project plan, expenditure, you know, you needed to do the full project, you needed to be specific.
Yeah.
It depends on the organisation. Some organisations just want more of a snapshot of your situation and nothing, you know, but you've still got to be specific. So I find the process is that a little bit different between the organisations over the years. But what I did find was really helpful was I created in the end, because of the similarities in the processes where you do find similarities, it was helpful to have like a master document that you could kind of keep updating. So more or less just almost an essay about your story, you know, because you have to assume people don't know anything about your story and haven't heard about your story. So really just a kind of, I don't know, 2-3 page Google Doc that can be updated, that you can streamline and use with different organisations to give them a, you know, a firm picture of your situation and in what ways you need help. So that was really helpful. But like I say, that didn't really help for the Arts Council because that was more of a project timeline expenditure, you know, a little bit different. Most of them have a portal and the questions can obviously vary a little bit, but the process that I've found has really helped is, streamlining master document that you can kind of update and share across the different mediums. So.
Just to piggyback off that, what funding have you applied for that you feel has like had the biggest benefit to you, like had the best impact on your career? Is there one that like pops out that you're like, I really, you know, use that funding really wisely and it's really helped me? Is there any?
I'd say probably all of them really, but the Arts Council in 2021 was a big one. That was the most I've been awarded. And that was all about adapting to music production with a visual impairment. So that was all about turning my studio that had relied more on my sight before, so lots of screen diving, a lot of need to use your eyes. Basically, I wanted to streamline it to a smaller setup, one that actually worked when you turn it on, one that didn't rely on your eyes so much. So that was the big one, I'd say, and that's been really, really valuable. But then there's also been one that I used via Help Musicians, which was all about adapting to my DJing. What I realised when I lost the ability to use CDJs was that I'd got thousands of digital files that were no longer useful.
Right.
They're kind of rendered useless when you can't actually use the machines to play them. So I worked out with my support worker how much it would cost to replace some of the vinyl. And we worked out, we did this spreadsheet, we itemised it all. We worked out to replace 200 of the digital files from my iTunes. It was going to cost £6,000.
Wow.
Worsened by Brexit, of course, and the implications of Brexit and how that's affected Discogs and shipping costs and all of that. So that was also a big one. And that was all about putting the digital files onto dub plates so that I could then label with Braille. And I could almost create my own kind of CDs in a way, but on vinyl. But it's quite an expensive way of doing things because it's like £44 to £50, and you can only put 2 to 4 tracks on a vinyl to get the sound quality that you need and the playback quality that you need for a club environment. So that's also been really helpful. And then also more recently, an RNIB Elizabeth Eagle Botts Memorial Fund is a grant that is via the Royal National Institute of Blind People. It's for partially sighted and blind musicians specifically, and they offer grants of up to £2,000. One key detail is that they don't offer funding that pays you kind of a wage like the Arts Council. You know, the Arts Council, you can kind of set it so that you almost kind of earn a wage whilst you not whilst you study, but whilst you carry out the project. Whereas the Elizabeth Eagle kind of stipulate that they can't do that, but what they can do, they can fund projects, they can fund study, they can fund mentoring, coaching for up to £2,000. So you just have to, I think it's a yearly thing, and you have to fill out the form by the end of March each year, and then they'll tell you by the May. And I had to have an interview with, it was quite daunting actually, I had to have an interview with around 10 people on a Zoom call and on a panel, and, they all asked me the various questions they wanted to ask me, and I was thankfully awarded the full £2,000 for the course and for additional hours from a support worker actually, just to help see the course through.
Right.
With it being a 12-week course. At the time, I didn't have the access to work hours, so I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to actually see the course through. And that's for a course that it's production fundamentals for songwriting, because I've had aspirations to add vocals to my songs, to my tracks properly for some time, but I've not had the tools to do it, nor have I had the kind of money to invest in it myself.
If there's anybody watching this that is disabled or blind and wants to apply for funding, do you have any advice? I mean, you've been successful, so what advice would you give them? Just adding on to what you've already said. So
yeah, I mean, be proactive, be precise, be specific, think tangibly. Really kind of don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to ask for help. That's what it's there for. If you haven't got a support worker, speak to your local authority about getting one. When I became registered, admittedly probably about 10 years late, I had a rehab officer come to the house and give me the visual aids and the canes, and we had a big, chat, and she said, did you know that you can actually probably apply for a PA, a support worker, given your circumstances? And I did, so I have 14 hours a week with a support worker provided by my local council. Not all local councils do that, but I think I'm quite fortunate that Leeds do.
Yeah.
And also more recently, I had an Access to Work award granted. So I have 24 hours of support a week now. And I don't think I appreciate not everyone has that. So there are barriers if you don't have a support worker. And I would say that the support workers are the reason I've ended up getting these grants, because they've been able to help me, see them through from A to B or whatever.
Right. So that sounds like even before you apply for funding, get the
see
support.
what help there is out there for you. Yeah, because you'll be surprised. I didn't know. I was just kind of crumbling under the pressure of it all, and like not aware that there was help out there for me until this amazing rehab officer who happens to have a son who DJs herself, so she gets it. So I got lucky. Yeah, I think that's the first step. See what support there is out there, especially if you're someone who's partially sighted, severely, sight impaired, severely sight impaired, clinically blind. If you are struggling to even get through the day and do the normal stuff, I think where the support worker has been helpful is that they'll actually just, because I'm in this transitional period of going from being able to read to not being able to read, obviously learning Braille, using screen readers, it's not an overnight process. So even just from a typing it out for me perspective and helping me with the layout of the portal, not all websites are screen reader friendly. PDFs are a nightmare to read with your screen reader. And so I need a second pair of eyes to just be able to do the formalities of filling out the forms sometimes. Obviously, we bounce ideas off each other as well. They can kind of help in that respect. It's generally facilitating my filling in of the forms and the actual application process, and doing the intricacies that I can't sort of see to do myself.
Yeah.
Doing the research, helping me digest information from the internet. Obviously AI and ChatGPT and things like that are helping that process along. But yeah, it's just really having that second pair of eyes in the absence of, having them work properly.
I know that very well.
Yeah, I'm sure you can relate, yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about the fact that you got lucky, but I think it's not just a case of luck. I think it's determination and resilience and hard work. That is also, a big reason as to why you've got the funding that you have applied for. So don't take that away from yourself.
No, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Attitude is everything. Find out more via attitudeiseverything.org.uk.